My name is Jessica, and I am a mother of a beautiful child with autism. So I wanted to make a video not just about autism, but about any developmental delay and how to get that started. Navigating the process in the beginning can be a bit difficult. You're kind of coordinating between insurance, doctors, also some community-based resources. So really important that you get organized and kind of have an idea of where you're going with this. So at this point, you may just notice that your child has some speech delay, or you may notice that your child has sleep problems or is having some sensory regulation problems. Early diagnosis and treatment is key. So what that means is you want to get treatment services as soon as you can. Unfortunately, the insurance process does not really help with that very much, and that's where the community resources are going to come in to help you. So I want to go over some steps that you can control and do as a parent advocate for your child, because ultimately you're going to be the coordinator or the quarterback of their care. So the first thing I would recommend 100% hands down is get yourself a planner. These things are so helpful, guys. I personally like the Happy Planner. This was the first planner I used when I was using my son. I'm in no way paid for or endorsed by this company. I just really like them. It's become a way that I not only keep track of my appointments, services, work as a working mommy, but I also keep track of some of their really fun memories in here. Sorry about the chickens. And it's now kind of like a photo book organizer that I have as well. So if you like information on that, I would be happy to make a video on that. Just let me know in the comments section. But I've started off with this size and then had to escalate to the bigger one because I also store my reports in here, so that way I can pull up the IEP reports or the doctor's reports. This way I can just kind of keep it all in a central database and keep track of it. So the reason why I say get a planner is because in the beginning, you're probably gonna call your pediatrician, right? So you call your pediatrician, you say, hey, I think my kid's delayed. What do I need to do? They're gonna wanna run some medical tests most likely. Just make sure there's no, if your house was built before 74, your apartment, make sure there's no lead-based paint contamination concerns, some iron deficiency concerns, make sure there's no medical reason causing the delay. That's up to the pediatrician. And then they're also maybe gonna start services based on what you need. So they may say, okay, I'll order speech because your kid's speech delayed, or I'll order occupational therapy because they're having trouble sleeping or sensory regulating, whatever it may be. You may not even think it's autism at this point, you just have a problem and they're ordering a service for you. They also may want you to see a developmental pediatrician. This is a pediatrician who specializes in developmental delays. All these services are kind of hard to get into a lot of times depending on the demand in your area. So, and then the insurance has to process it. It's not just something you can just show up and do. So why I want you to get a planner is because the next step you're gonna do is you're gonna call to make the appointment, and you're gonna talk to somebody and they may say something like, you need insurance authorization, or you need a referral, or you need a physician's order. Whatever they say you need, you don't have to understand it. I certainly didn't, and I'm a nurse. But writing it down is so helpful, because let's say you call and you talk to Susan, let's just say her name's Susan, and she tells you need authorization, referral, and an order. And you say, okay, when can I expect these things to be done? And she says, I can't schedule you until I get these things. When can I expect for these things to be done? 2 to 3 days. Great, I'm gonna call you in 2 days, or are you gonna call me? And they'll say, we'll call you, but I just call anyways. They may say something like 2 weeks. I don't accept 2 weeks as a timeline for me. That's part of my advocacy as a parent, so I would just call every 2 to 3 days. That's up to you how you want to proceed. But early intervention is really important, so the squeaky wheel gets the oil, and I just called it every 2 to 3 days. Writing it down in your planner, who you spoke to, what they said you need, and the timeline of when they need you to call back really saved me a lot. I didn't do it in the beginning, but then once I started doing it, I was able to get a lot more services started and quicker than I was prior to that. So something that helps to streamline and expedite the process and help you understand the process, because I really didn't at the beginning. So once you get that done, the next step is to call to follow up. So make sure you call them back. Calling them back at that time, hey, I spoke to Susan on Tuesday. She said that by Friday I should have these things. It's now Friday. I wanted to follow up and make sure where we're at with this. Okay, we received the auth, we received the referral, but we're waiting on an order. Then when should I expect to hear from that? What do we need to do to get that? Okay, I'll call you back at the end of the day to follow up and schedule. Or you finally get the appointment. Step 3, getting the appointment. So intake appointments for speech, occupational therapy, pediatrician, a new patient appointment with any service is difficult to get. And that's because they're longer appointments. They need to get to know your child and what they need. So this is like an hour appointment or half hour, whatever it may be. It's a longer appointment slot and there aren't as many of those. So whatever it takes to get that appointment, get the appointment. Unfortunately, a lot of services are months out, especially depending on the demand in your area. So just make the appointment, do whatever you need to do to get that appointment and keep it. Prioritize it, call off sick from work, whatever you need to do, keep the appointment. Because if you reschedule it, unfortunately I've had to do this, you then have to wait several months all over again. So keep those appointments, and the follow-up appointments are much shorter and they have a lot more of them. So you can get those a lot easier. But the next thing that I want you to do, step number 4, is follow up with your community resources. Now, I shouldn't call this step 4 because you really should be doing this all the way in the beginning with step 1. This can happen simultaneously while you're working the insurance side of things, then you can also work the community side of things. So every community should have a resource because the autism community is vast. The developmental delays community is pretty vast. So there should be some state or community funded program that offers services for you, because everybody knows that early intervention is key in the success of children. And I will do a little bit on the developmental pyramid, but basically by the time you get to school, that's the tip of the pyramid and you've already missed so much of the foundational needs that your child has. So it's really best to try to attack this in the early years before they even get to the school environment. Every community looks different. Wherever you live, you're going to have to look it up on Google. You can also check out Autism Speaks. They have a lot of resources on there. In my community, I live in San Diego, so we have the 211 resource. You can call 211. They can help direct you to whatever you need. I actually didn't do that. I had a neighbor who I talked to about my son's speech delay, and she said, oh, my daughter had speech problems. I called First 5 San Diego. They had somebody out at my house and they did therapy in my house and it was free to me. So I called them. Sorry about the chickens there. They don't have a speech problem, unfortunately. But the First 5 San Diego people, I called them and they said, it sounds like, after they asked me several questions, it sounds like your child has more of a need than what we can provide. So we recommend you call the regional center. And the regional center is a coordination of all sorts of disability services, but they came out right away. They did a 2-person assessment. One person's playing with the child, doing the interventions, and the other person is intaking, observing, documenting, and then also taking questions from me and intake from me. And at the end of the observation, they told me my son was at risk for autism, moderately at risk for autism. And they were able to start services for him right away. But obviously that was heartbreaking to hear. At that point, I had just thought it was a speech problem. I didn't have any idea that there was a concern for autism for him. We're first-time parents with our son, so we didn't know the normal expected developmental delay, so we didn't really recognize that some of the things he was doing was not normal, which is totally okay, and he's now doing fantastic. Once again, everybody's journey is different, but the regional center was huge because when I was waiting for that whole long insurance processing stuff, they already came, assessed, and started services, and they said, just do these services, and when your insurance kicks in, let us know so we can then transition it over to the insurance. So I had speech for months before I ever saw an intake speech therapist through my insurance. The speech therapist I had was wonderful and identified sensory needs. Told me, hey, he's playing with sensory seeking toys like spiky balls and squishy balls. I think you should get an OT eval because once you get the OT stuff going, a lot of times speech can take off after that. So I told my social worker with the regional center, she said, oh, boom, occupational therapy ordered, let me know when your physician orders it and you get the authorization and all that. So they were able to fill the gaps when the insurance wasn't able to. So check out your community resources. That is a great place to get started while you're doing all this. Basically, you need your child to see a clinical psychologist or psychiatrist in order to be diagnosed with autism. You can't start behavioral-based services until you get a diagnosis of autism, which may not happen at that developmental pediatrician appointment. So while you're waiting that 6 months, 4 months, whatever that timeline is, look into places that can get your child diagnosed. So the regional center offered diagnostic, like an appointment with a clinical psychologist for diagnosis of autism. And in my community, San Diego, the local university was doing a study on autism. And so they had a clinical psychologist evaluating kids. They do an initial evaluation to do the diagnosis. So we actually never got our son diagnosed through our insurance. That took way too long, way too long. We ended up getting diagnosed with the University of San Diego. We were in a little bit of denial about it. We didn't agree with the things. We thought maybe it was too hot in the room. There was too much stimulus. They had us moving different rooms. So we didn't necessarily want to accept what was happening. So we ended up also getting him evaluated with the regional center, and they both did diagnose him with level 2 autism in both areas A and B. And the final thing that you can do while you're waiting is observe your child for sensory seeking or avoiding behaviors. Now Google this, look into it, I'll make a video on it. If it's things like, is your kid slamming into walls? Are they slamming their head into you? Are they slamming their head on the floor? Are they really sensitive to sounds? Do they get bothered by certain textures of their food? All these things that you can observe, and then you can look into, depending on whatever resources you have, some sensory like toys that are appropriate for your child's age. And then also, like I said, I'll make a video to it. So if you like this video, please like. If you like what I have to offer here, please subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out to know what you need and what's worth making more videos on. And I really hope that you get all the services you need and that you see me in the next video.